Hello and welcome to Downshift podcast episode numero dos. Name of this show still to be determined. We actually have some interesting stuff to talk about with the naming. We're going to announce in the near future here a naming contest for our podcast, and what you will get out of it is not only fame and glory of naming the Downshift podcast, but also you'll win a 2-night stay at our Airbnb up above the Downshift shop. And so details are going to be announced. It's going to be a $5 entry fee to get your name put in the hat to name the podcast. And what that will do is that will be donated to Roanoke Outside. Roanoke Outside is hosting the sort of fundraiser this year in place of the Go Fest. And so we're hoping that people will give us some contributions and get the honor of naming our podcast, which is pretty darn cool. So we have Greg, which you may recognize and remember from our last episode.
Hey, everybody.
Greg is here today. I'm laughing because this is so dumb. So our UPS lady, Kim, who's a saint, she loves bringing us packages and she comes very often. And she walked in the other day, and I'll put up the photo here in a second, but she bring in this huge bag of stuff. And she's like, did you guys order like 25 random pieces of UPS, packaging? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Let me look through my order history from Amazon. I ordered one thing from Amazon, and it was a derailleur, but she had an entire bag full of stuff. And so I said, I'm sorry, we didn't get this. We didn't order this, so I'll return it. And she brought them back, and she took them away. And they were all from the same company. And a different UPS gentleman brought more of these packages to us. And so he left before we could return these. So he dumped all these things down here. And so we're fortunate enough to have, producer, can you hand me some of these packages over here? We're fortunate enough to have a pile of these packages that were given to us from Amazon that we're gonna do a fun little unboxing of here to kind of go through and see what random stuff was sent to us from Amazon.
We have no idea what's in these packages, but we're about to find out. I'm excited.
Yeah, Greg was able to find, Greg was able to come up with the idea actually. So he was the one that said, why don't we open these on the show and we can figure out what some of this stuff is. So they're all from the same company. So we got the part that we wanted, but they sent us 40 other things. And so we'll end up returning these too. But yeah, why don't we start?
Let's dig in. Let's dig in. So what's the name of this company?
It's Movatic.
Whoa.
Mine is a series of scrub pads
with a thank you
note.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I wonder if the note says anything. Thank you for ordering a derailleur. Here's 50 pieces of stuff that you don't actually need. Thanks for giving our small family-run business a shot. Your orders and reviews matter more than you can imagine.
Wow.
Well, if we can get a hold of Jess
5 out of 5
and show her this stuff and this video, she might actually be pretty impressed with that. So we'll make sure that Jess gets all this stuff back.
Now I've got, Good Baby dual mode thermometer. How about that? That's good for ear measurement, head measurement, clinically accurate algorithm.
Shoot, that's solid gold right now.
Wow.
Is there an age on that? Because I have a baby, I can use that on.
It's all yours, Steve. I don't think it.
No, we need to send it back to Jess. Although Amazon is probably the one that screwed this up, because I can't imagine a small run business sent 50-something boxes of the wrong thing to people. But who knows? I don't know. Okay, package number 2. Oh, baby, funny Velcro patches. Look at this, Coronavirus Survivor 2020.
I love it. I love it.
I think that this should go in my bag. I don't know, that's pretty darn cool. All right, Greg, what's up on yours?
All right, let's see what we got here. Super, does that say Super? Super AC adapter. Wow, look at that. If you need to plug something in.
Yeah, what's the, does it give like a type or something on there?
Let's see. 30-day money-back guarantee, 12-month new replacement, caution, keep cords away, don't chew the cords. No.
Just an AC adapter, random.
Yeah, there's a picture of a tablet and a computer game and an iPod.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's super useful.
Interesting. Yeah, if you have something to plug it into, that would be great.
I mean, AC comes out of the walls, so
Yes, so it goes to DC,
is this
I guess.
going to DC then? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
So here's a stereo jack, 2.5 millimeter cable to 3.5 millimeter cable. So that's like the old school.
Oh.
The old school phones used to use 2.5 mils, and so now to adapt to like a standard headphone cable, you go to 3.5 mils. So
Wow.
that's what that is. That's exciting. Not really that useful right now, but you never know.
This feels like more scrub pads. Just guessing.
Is there a thank you note in there? That's what I want to know. I'll let you have this big one next.
Oh, no, I was wrong. Zip ties.
Oh man, if they don't want those, we can use those
Green
here for sure.
zip ties. That looks great.
Oh man, that's cool.
Christmas is coming.
Okay, here's another
Look
one.
at that one.
Did it say where they came from? Did it just?
They're all from
the same place?
Movatic. They're all from Movatic. So Command
Ooh, command
hanger
books?
thingies, yeah.
You can never have too many.
These
of
are
those.
cool. We could use these in here too, actually,
Yeah.
since we don't have a ton of stuff on the walls. Yeah, that would work. Hopefully, what was her name again?
Who?
Jess.
Oh,
Hopefully
Jess,
Jess
yeah,
at Movatic
Jess.
doesn't want some of this stuff and we can buy it off her because we could actually use some of this stuff.
Thanks, Jess. What?
Oh,
no
this is,
way.
I see an Asian
No
woman
way.
on the front. Is it a costume?
Ghostbusters costume. Just in time for Halloween. Hell yeah.
What age group is that
Dude,
for?
that inflates. Your Ghostbusters backpack inflates.
Is it? Is there an age bracket? Like, will it fit you? Is what I'm asking.
It's a small,
So absolutely.
USA size 4 to 6 for ages 3 to 4.
Greg,
So,
how tall are you?
no. I'm afraid
Oh.
not. We'll give it to Josh.
Josh
Shorter
can
than
wear
me.
it, yeah. Wes, you might actually need this, Wes, for your school. This is a laptop cooling pad. Look at that.
Ooh.
So, like, if you don't want to burn yourself when you're doing, are you taking calculus or like any kind of engineering? All right, well, thank you to Jess and to the guys at Movatech for sending this stuff. Hopefully we can get it back to them or buy some of it because it's pretty cool. We're definitely going to make Josh wear this costume.
Yeah.
One last thing to talk about is, since we are a bike shop that sells beer and coffee, we have some beers on the table. Here, Greg's got, tell us about it.
I got the Neon Daydream Hazy Ale from Deschutes. One of my favorites. It's a hazy ale, but it's kind of a session sort of hazy ale. It's only 4.8%, 35 IBUs, tons of flavor. Deschutes is one of my favorite breweries in the area. One of my favorite beers. It's great for the summertime.
Yeah, get it now before
Crushing
summer's
it.
over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I've got a Polliner Oktoberfest Marzen, which is great for this time of year too. So one of them, probably the most famous Oktoberfest beers out there. Really flavorful, just good quality drinking beer for the fall weather. Yeah, both pretty enjoyable. So thanks, Greg, for being
Yep.
part of the show again today.
Thank you.
We'll see him again in the future. Stand by for our interview with Rob Issam about his Rockstar ride this year and all about the Rockstar series, as well as the different routes that are part of the Rockstar ride between Harrisonburg and Roanoke. Welcome back. Right now we have Rob Issam, aka Flabby McDingleberry, or maybe it's the other way around. Flabby
Right,
McDingleberry,
Flabby.
aka
He's official.
Rob Issam. Yeah, so we'll go with Flabby from here on out. But anyway, Flabby's here to talk about the Rockstar, and the Rockstar is sort of it's almost like its own living thing because it evolves every year. The ride changes every year, the date, the route, all that stuff. And so, give me a kind of a brief rundown of what the Rockstar is and when it got started and all the background for it.
Yeah, so originally, basically it got started with a bunch of guys, moon stompers. We were all messaging. I messaged them. Everybody's doing a 100-mile race, right? And so I thought, what if we did a 200-mile race, like just more extreme? Let's get crazier. And immediately my moon stomper buddies were like, yes, especially like Tommy Orovets, who's a good friend in Blacksburg, and he said, like, how are we going to do it? Are we going to do like a point-to-point? And I originally had like a clover leaf idea with a hub in the middle. But then I thought about like how cool it would be to go from Harrisonburg to Roanoke, like these two iconic mountain biking cities and really the communities, those two communities put so much into mountain biking, and it's exciting to be in either one. So plus everybody, like sometimes people had tried to bike from Harrisonburg to Roanoke before, but they always got lost. They couldn't find their way. Some people are still in the wilderness right now trying to figure out how to get there. So like, we got to make a route to get them from one place to another. So anyhow, originally it was just linking together all of the single track, and there's massive number of amount of trails between those two cities. So you start downtown Harrisonburg, and that was a cool thing we wanted to do too, is have a downtown start that really featured each city center. And so the Grand Depart happens heart of Harrisonburg at Black Sheep Coffee, goes through their like showcase park, Hillendale Park, which is all IMBA certified trails, everything from green trails through expert level trails right there in their downtown. It's so amazing because if you own a bike shop in Harrisonburg and somebody wants to test ride a bike, they can just send them to Hillendale, which is a block or two down the road. And,
cool.
and so it's super cool. So we wanted to showcase Hillendale, and then it heads west on some beautiful country roads into the Forest Service corridor, George Washington and Jefferson National Forest, and it goes all the way to Catawba, finishing off the Dragon's Back Ridge, and then goes across Catawba Mountain into the Cove, and then through downtown Roanoke. Every route goes to the Star.
Yep.
And then you come back down and finish at Texas Tavern. And so the name Rockstar is Rocktown, Harrisonburg's town nickname, and Star City. And so anyhow, that was amazing idea. And like we just laid maps out on Tommy and Laura's back deck and drew stuff up, and then it kind of developed pretty quickly at that point. And we also realized this is not going to be a 200-mile event.
Just because of the terrain.
Yeah, and it's a longer distance. And we also I personally didn't want to make it like a fastest point-to-point thing and cut out all of these beautiful trails along the way. Because the vision is that people will travel from all over the country and world to do this route, like the Appalachian Trail or the Colorado Trail or the Arizona Trail. So if they do Rockstar and they come here, they get a taste of all of the amazing trail systems along the way. So like when you climb up Middle Mountain to Douthit, instead of like just turning right and going down Fore Mountain into like the Covington area, you dip into Douthit and do a loop. And Douthit's a legendary mountain bike trail system. So we wanted, because people were like, why are you doing this loop in Douthit? And there's other reasons too, because there's a camp store there and there's camping there. So, but I did get some pushback on that. And then
there's a funny story about that too that we can talk about later. But yeah.
Yeah, and then similarly, like when you're going along Fore Mountain, Fore Mountain does have a trail that goes right toward Covington, but I send people off of that to climb up Bald Knob and then descend Dry Run and around Peters Ridge. That's showcase trails that Mike Scales and the Covington crew, Clifton Forge crew, Allegheny Highlands Trail Coalition, I think is their, or Trail Club. Like they spend a lot of time keeping those maintained, and this is like one of their showcase events. And it's inspiring because like ahead of this event, so much work went into the trails.
Right.
And so Rockstar, in addition to just being a super fun thing where it connects these two towns and it's amazing riding, it also supports the maintenance of all of these trails and preserves them as well. Because there's always land developers or energy developers saying, hey, we'd like to harvest those, clear cut that area or put a pipeline through there, and
it's definitely going on right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we demonstrate that this is actively used for recreation and increases the quality of life for everybody in Virginia, hopefully that gives us some ammunition to push back against developers that want to use those spaces too.
Yep. So interesting. So to tell people kind of, it's not necessarily a race. It's more of a route that can be ridden all year, but you have several sort of departs or events that focus on the route. So kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So similar to like the Colorado Trail or the Appalachian Trail, the Rockstar routes are always there for people. And I call it like the Rockstar Challenge. If you accept the challenge, you're going to try to complete one of these routes. And what I didn't mention previously is that after we drew the trail route, it became really apparent that in that exact same Forest Service corridor, there was amazing Forest Service roads and gravel roads. So we're like, and gravel riding is just exploding. Yeah, so we were like, we could do a Rockstar gravel route really easily. And literally in 24 hours after publishing the trail route, we had a gravel route.
Yeah.
And we polished it in over time. I mean, the guys who did the first Grand Depart will tell you that it
wasn't ready.
Yeah, there were hitches. And that's kind of a funny story too, because there were a bunch of trails that we knew, and then some other stuff that we just put out there. And like you mentioned, I just rode all three routes in their entirety recently. And so it wasn't like I was out there super scouting everything. I just kind of pieced together stuff. So there were pieces that we didn't know and people were going to be experiencing and just figuring out. Then, prior to the first Grand Depart, I was following my son Andrew and Steve Powers mountain biking, and I just washed out in some leaves and I broke my hand.
Shit, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so that was actually a great handbrake, because what it did is I was like almost clinically depressed. I wasn't going to be able to do the first Grand Depart. So I invented the Pave Route.
Yeah.
And the Pave Route is just this valley route that is amazingly gorgeous country roads and some Forest Service roads, but not gnarly ones. And it's completely doable on a road bike. Like the first time I did it on a cross bike, the second time I did it on my old Merckx road bike with you. And then, but on the first Grand Depart, I just installed aero bars, so I didn't have to put so much pressure on my wrist, and just completed it. And when I did, I'd never seen it before. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. The Pave Route is so gorgeous. And I mean, the biggest climb on the Pave Route is Mill Mountain right here. So that's just goes to show you, it's super approachable. Like anybody can do the Pave Route who can ride a bike on the road.
Yeah. It's what, 165 miles ballpark. I think it's 11,000 feet total elevation gain over that 165. So and we have, not to lose track of the conversation, but just to touch on what you mentioned there, we have a cyclist on our team, Jeremy Miller, who just finished the Pave Route. And he has advanced so much in his riding over the last few years, and he just finished the Pave. And it's really incredible to see kind of the beginners move into this more advanced stuff and to kind of see them finish it and do it. And it's so cool to see that happen.
Yeah, I was so stoked when I saw that Jeremy had registered. I mean, because he's always reaching for like, hey, this sounds cool. I'm just going to sign up or do this. And but like you're exactly right. He was pretty. I mean, both Saturday was the longest ride he ever did of Rockstar, and it was no problem, because that's the way the Pave Route is. It's just rolling, inviting, and it's so gorgeous. Like you get wrapped up in how beautiful the area is, and you don't even feel like if your legs are tired, I think. So yeah, it's really easy. Doing it in 2 days. I mean, almost anybody with like a gravel or road bike, even a mountain bike, can just get to Douthit on day one on the Pave Route.
Right. So the idea is that Rockstar is this route ride concept almost between Harrisonburg and Roanoke. And there's 3 distinct segments. There's a single track, or what do we call it? Trail, gravel, and Pave. And so give the audience kind of a breakdown of the distances of all 3 of those and the rough gain and the rough time it would take to ride all 3.
Great. So so the trail, which was the original concept, that it ended up this year to be about 280 miles. And I think there's 43,000 feet of climbing in it.
Gosh, that's so much.
It's a ton. It's sort of like the ultimate challenge. It's a showcase of different amazing trails all along the way. It was completed this year in a time that we didn't even think was possible if you asked us 2 or 3 years ago. So Abe Kaufman this year did it in under 2 days. I forget what the total number of hours were, but I mean, it was amazingly fast. Abe's kind of like really becoming an absolutely astonishing rider, and I was excited that he was going after it. And we actually had like 5 riders, all superhero caliber, going after it this year. But Abe and Mike Scales were the only 2 that made it all the way.
Oh, wow,
everybody had different issues and things come up.
Because like Sam and Jonathan were riding too, right?
Yep.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, those are really talented group of people.
Yes. And even Joe Wharton, the defending champion, had a mechanical situation. I think the cleat just came completely off, like disappeared. So he switched over to the Pave Route. So a mortal would do it's challenging for like a normal, fit, like good mountain biker to do it in 4 days. You and I worked on designing a stage race a couple of years ago that did it in 4 days, like about 75 miles a day. And that was hard, but doable, unloaded. So loaded, it seemed like crazy to do it, but he did it in under 2 days, less than 2 days, which is amazing. And more than 24 hours faster than the previous record. So that's the trail route. It's possible to do it in 2 days. Mortals are going to do it in 4 days. And there's no end. Like, for example, in the first year, Travis did it in, I think, 8 days. And it's just a showcase of amazing riding. So there's no like I mean, you can race it,
Right.
but it's super fun just to take it at whatever pace is great for you. And we had a couple of people, Mary and Mike, I believe, and they had a van following them along on the gravel route this year. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so they had when I saw them once, the guy, Mary's husband Greg, was making grilled cheese sandwiches on the side. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great way to do Rockstar. So you can approach it in any way that just is the most fun for you. Sort of the mega challenge is to do it unsupported. And this year we define that as you can only have whatever you've got on your bike or whatever you can find along the route, except for Douthat. So in Douthat you can receive support or do whatever. And Douthat is sort of like anything goes. Next year we're actually changing that because it was a little bit of an advantage to the local riders who could set a cache at Douthat more easily than people coming from other states.
Because they're there already. So
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so next year we're going to have, when you show up to the Grand Depart at the start, people can throw one carry-on luggage size bag in a van, and then that will go to the check-in at Douthat. And anybody can do that. And then if you can make it to that in one night, that's amazing. Most people cannot.
Right.
So you still got to carry some overnight gear with you. But to get to the duration of the other routes, Jeremiah Bishop, this is really kind of cool, the names that are at the top of these lists. So Jeremiah Bishop is the current gravel route FKT holder, but the gravel route actually adjusted. And so Seth Ellis, who is the owner of Bokova Beer Company, he set the new FKT on the new route this year in the Grand Depart when he won it. So Jeremiah did it in under 20 hours, which was absolutely astonishingly amazing. But the new route adds quite a bit of mileage and climbing, like 20 or 15 miles and a ton more climbing.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't know if it can be done as fast. It probably can't be done as fast as Jeremiah did the old route.
Right.
And the route is kind of in play too. We're talking about what we're going to do next year. 99% of the route is going to stay the same on both routes, but we do make these little tweaks to make it a better experience for the rider when that's necessary.
It's neat that it evolves. It's cool that it changes every year and it kind of it adapts to what's needed. And so that's a neat feature of it too. So we had this year, we had a fall Grand Depart, but I know that's moving to the spring. So kind of touch on why a spring Grand Depart is important and who, talk about, the feel of that and who attends the Grand Depart and kind of the vibe surrounding that. Yeah,
so ideally, it's intended to be a spring Grand Depart every year. This year, because of COVID, we moved it to the fall just because no cycling group events were happening in the spring. And we just didn't know, could it be done safely? By the fall, we realized outdoor, with enough social distancing, it's going to be totally fine, and it was. But spring is it's the best time to do this. And there's a number of reasons. And one is after the winter, all the leaves are down on the trees and all the understory of the forest has kind of died back, which is really important because there's stinging nettles and there's briars and berries. And so when you're riding in the spring and all that's died back, it's just less bloody on your part, because a lot of this is serious backcountry terrain. It's not like riding at the Cove where it's super heavy. I mean, it does come through the Cove, which is great, but all that national forest section that's just huge, a lot of it's backcountry, and it's amazing. So by doing it in the spring, it opens up amazing views because we're in a deciduous area, so all the leaves are down. Right. It's literally mind-blowing gorgeous to be on these ridge lines on single track for this whole massive length from just west of Harrisonburg all the way to Catawba and just see these amazing views the whole time. And then, so wayfinding's easier, views are better, and it's a great time for us as a group of enthusiasts to get out and work the trails too. Right. Because if we come together as a community and we do trail work ahead of the spring Grand Depart, that means that for the rest of the spring and into the summer, all of the trails are going to be clear and riding great for everybody else. So for example, Abe said he was blown away by all the sawing and trail work that had been done. On a 270-mile route, he said he maybe got off his bike 3 times to climb over something.
Yeah.
Which, how amazing is that?
After
right?
all that mileage, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mostly thanks to Mike Scales and his team. We helped a bunch, and actually the Riveters, our local new female
the women's
cycling
riding
group.
Yep.
Yeah, they did some trail work at Lee Creek too, which was awesome and super appreciated. So we're going to do it in the spring every year. I mean, in the first year that was kind of crazy because we did it in the spring and there was this wild
snowstorm, right?
Yeah, double snowstorm. 2 just dumps of snow on the riders right after the Grand Depart happened. But last year, as you saw, it was amazing. I mean, we did have some rain, but the forecast was great. We all had an amazing time.
Yeah. Is it on the calendar for next year already, the dates?
Yeah, April 17th.
Okay, and so if you want to ride one of these 3 routes, pave, gravel, or trail, you can start and ride that weekend for the Grand Depart, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And so you just finished the Grand Depart, or this gravel segment this year, what was it, a week, not even a week ago, right? Like 3 days ago.
I know, right?
Like really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And so tell us, so it took you how many days, and tell us about your sleeping situation and the ride. I know it was challenging.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So because of COVID, I wasn't, and I have a son with leukemia, so I've got to be super careful. So I can't really ride in a car with anybody. So I made the choice to ride from Roanoke to Harrisonburg on the Pave Route.
Ride meaning like ride your bike.
Yeah, I rode my bicycle, right? So I was doing what's called a yo-yo in these ultra ride scenarios where you ride up the route and then you can ride right back, but I took a day. So basically I started on Wednesday, did the Pave Route up. Friday I kind of chilled out in Harrisonburg, slummed around, had some fun with folks, and then Saturday morning did the gravel route back. It was absolutely fantastic experience. I mean, the Pave Route, I'd already done the Pave Route a couple of times, but both times north to south. Doing it south to north, it was like another amazing ride.
Yeah,
I mean,
you see different stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I have a whole bunch of video that I'm going to share because I had both a chest cam and another GoPro on a wand that I used.
Yeah.
So, and I've got it all organized by day of the ride, so you can see what I did. So anyhow, I'm going to be sharing that. But I mean, I saw things that I didn't even know were there because I'd just been looking from a different perspective. So anyhow, I'm going to do a yo-yo again next year. But so I did this, and I was like, I got to Harrisonburg, and then immediately started like after the Saturday morning, the Grand Depart. So in the first year I did the Pave. The second year I did the trail as a stage race, which was so fun. And then, by the way, the stage race option, which is going to return next April, I can't recommend that highly enough. It's so fun to ride your bike unloaded and just riding the greatest trails that Virginia has. And then when you get to the end of your hard day, all of your overnight gear is there, and you got Steve or other gang people from the Downshift team, you know, waiting with something hot, even if it's just hot water, so you can easily make your pre-made camp stuff. So anyhow, that's like a little departure from my experience. But then I started the gravel route, and I did it in a little less than 3 days, like 2 days, and I don't know, some whatever.
Right.
I finished just after midnight, I think, and then and so. It was amazing. I really loved, David Landis designed a new start to it this year.
Oh, cool.
And so it was kind of funny, and I made fun of it initially because, you know, everybody else starts out kind of heading toward Roanoke. Generally. But David had this route that took the gravel riders to like northwest into West Virginia. And the joke was like, you know, like Jeremiah Bishop, Gordon Wadsworth, Elliot, they all are like, gosh, the first 70 miles are so brutal in the gravel ride. Like it's because there's single track, there's climbing Union Springs, which is, you know, hike a bike even for the best riders. And there's all these huge weird puddles that take the whole road with. And so what David said is, you know what, Rob? Everybody's complaining it's too hard. Let's make it like significantly harder. And what we'll do is we'll send everybody else will kind of go like toward Roanoke, and we'll send the gravel riders northwest into West Virginia.
Away from home.
Right. So we went for like 15 miles in the wrong direction. But I have to say, like within 4 or 5 miles, we're already on gravel, and like, oh my gosh, the sunrise was coming up, and you could see some.
Such a nice day.
Holy cow! It was so great to start. And the route that David chose was a rider highlight experience. So like you're on these amazing gravel roads, and then you get on this road called Long Run Road. And Long Run is literally I think it was 14 or 15 miles long. David can let me know the actual. And it's just endless, just good quality gravel.
Yeah.
And then you get on Hall Road or Hall Mountain Road, which is, it can get overgrown because it's so infrequently used. I think it's really mostly used for hunters and it's gated. But I was like 7th in line, and so it was great because the other riders had kind of ridden the trail down a little bit, and my gosh, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, so anyhow, this whole edition, even though it was super hard and added a lot of time, mind-blowingly gorgeous, great adventure riding. Like I'd never been on those roads, and that's what it's all about. Like Rockstar, it's like having an adventure, like experiencing something new, experiencing Virginia in a new way. People that come from like Florida or New York or other countries, like they're like, holy cow, this is amazing.
That's a great segment, is that, you know, talking about that, like you really get a taste of Western Virginia, and you see a lot of different terrain, and you see a lot of different stuff along these routes. And the fact that you have 3 different routes, meaning you can ride different bikes, do different years, ride with different people. Like, it's just neat that you have this trip, for lack of a better term, between these 2 ride centers, you know, that you can do any way you want, whenever you want, you know, all these different varieties. And so that's what's so appealing about it, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah,
and in addition to that, and what we see every year is some people will start on one route and then switch to another route.
Right.
And it's so easy to do. And so the routes are kind of progressive. So the Pave Route is by far the easiest. And then the gravel route's easier, but still really hard. And then the trail route is crazy hard, but awesome. So, you know, for example, Joe Wharton had this mechanical, and instead of like calling somebody to come get him, he's just like, no problem, I'm going to switch to the Pave Route and ride it into Roanoke, which he did. And a number of people did that, like John and Johnny. Like I forget whether it was John or Johnny.
Johnny had the problem,
So
John went and rode and saved him. Exactly.
Yeah, he just rode into Roanoke on the Pave Route. And he said to me after, he's like, man, the Pave Route had some hills too, but I promise you, it was a lot easier. So yeah, and that happens. So the 3 routes crisscross quite a bit too.
Frequently,
So there's a lot of interaction between the riders. For example, when I was in West Augusta, as I was arriving at that general store in West Augusta, AJ DeLauder was there, and he had just gotten there on the trail route, and so we were talking a little bit. And then as I'm getting ready to go, David Landis pulls in. He's on the trail route. And we're just talking about like what's going to happen next. But it's so nice to have those little interactions. And you get the interactions with the people in your group, but once the start happens, your grand depart a lot of times spreads out. And then you might catch somebody else, but because it crosses the other routes, you have a greater chance actually of interacting with somebody on another route, doing another experience. So yeah, that's really cool, and it's a neat, like it's a feature of the Rockstar that, like the Arizona Trail or Colorado Trail, which are great great biking experiences, they don't have that like progressive alternative nature. So it's super cool for, I mean, even if we were to do like, you know, a guided event or a guided effort, somebody could try something and they're like, hey, I'm in over my head, no problem, switch over to this route. That is really cool. That's awesome, thank you. So we're gonna take a little break, and then we'll be back here in a few minutes with the continuation of the interview here with Flabby about the Rockstar route, and about things like what gear to bring, what bike to ride, you know, how the sleeping situation works, all those good things we'll touch on, as well as Downshift's role in the Rockstar. So thanks, we'll be back here in a sec. All right. Cool, so welcome back. So we're gonna talk a little bit about gear, and not so much about bicycles, because everybody has their own bike and chooses their own bike, but more so about like, tell me what you would recommend for like bags, panniers, you know, what kind of bags and stuff, and then like sleeping arrangements, like where you slept, what gear you used to sleep, time of year, you know, all those things that kind of factor into it. Yes, this is a great question, and I'm actually still trying to work this out for myself. It's an ongoing process. I was super uncomfortable when I overnighted this year in both. So I spent 2 nights on the route, and I wasn't happy either one. So This is really a great question though, because like Barry and other guys who are fast, but they're not wanting to stay asleep long, like Mike Scales, like what they're bringing, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but it's these SOL emergency bivvies.
Okay.
And they're like $59 on Amazon. All it is like a sack.
Yeah.
And
Waterproof, like a waterproof sack, sort of?
It might be waterproof. I don't know. I guess it's, I think, I do think it's waterproof, but all it is like a shell with like a little bit of reflective thing. And they would just they'd kind of bundle up, put like a puffy jacket on and maybe some wool socks, and then climb into it and sleep on the ground. And the idea is if you're racing, you don't want to be asleep very long. Like
right.
You keep riding until you like, I can't ride anymore. And then you break out this bivvy, which weighs nearly nothing, and you just throw on your jacket and your warm socks, crawl into it, lie on the ground, uncomfortable, probably shivering, but you're getting some rest, and then you wake up a few hours later and keep going. So that's like sleep system 1, right? Just an SOL bivvy. And it stands for survive outside longer, but it's really like shit out of luck. I mean, like this is the worst bivvy. It's designed for people to like put in their glove box of their car. And
so like worst case scenario.
Yeah, you survive,
kind of
right. So I tried to have, I thought I would do that. I actually tried in my backyard first. I was like, I'm going to try sleeping in this. I was absolutely miserable. I was like, holy cow, I can't do this. So then I, on my way up there, the night before I was at RMA, and they had a REI minimalist bivvy, which has like a little screen over the face, which I thought was great because when I tried my one overnight on the SOL bivvy, like bugs were just flying like in my ear and on my face, and I couldn't sleep at all. It was crazy, even if I was warm enough. So, so then I get this REI bivvy, and then my idea was I was going to bring the REI bivvy and put the other bivvy inside of that, and put like a warmer jacket, hopefully warm, dry socks.
Right.
So I did that. My first night I slept on Rich Patch, just like on the side of the road basically, but it was beautiful, like rural area with wooded section on the side of the road and then a field, and I just slept on the edge of the woods in the field. Not like an official spot by any means, but I mean, I was only there for a handful of hours. Nobody really knew I was there. Yeah. And I was miserably cold and hardly rested at all. And then the next day I had to ride 102 miles with the rest of my gear. Luckily it was on the Pave Route, but then I got lost. So I had to ride another 28 miles. So it was a 130 mile day on like nearly no sleep. It was, so anyhow, horrible. So at David Landis's house, which was amazing, David like reviewed my gear and he's like, you could leave this here and you should take this. And I added a sleeping bag liner. He thought I should actually bring another down quilt.
Yeah. For insulation?
Yeah, just for insulation to keep warm. And I had like a half length sleeping pad. He thought a full length sleeping pad would be better, which I agree. It would have definitely been better because my legs were absolutely brutally cold. Yeah. And so, but I didn't have one of those. So all I did was I added a layer, this like fleece bottom. And so my next night out on the trail, I had the SOL bivvy inside the REI bivvy with some pants and a sleeping bag liner. And again, I literally just laid down and waited for the daybreak to come. Like it was again miserable. It was, but I think and you think like I had so much more than some of these other riders like Mike Scales and Barry Croker who are doing it with just the SOL bivvy. It's unimaginable. So, but on the other end of that spectrum, like I think some people are bringing like legit bike packing gear. Right. Like you're on a tour, and so you're going to be comfortable. Like I just messaged Cindy, like she's doing the Trans Virginia this coming weekend. Yeah. So she's got a tent, a one-person tent, a full-length sleeping pad, a good quilt, like a 40-degree quilt, and then she's got warm stuff, thermal, like wool layers, and then she'll probably be really comfortable. Right. And that's a great idea if you're not like hell bent on getting there, like saving every gram and getting there as fast as you can. And it's really up to the individual, like what they want to do, because If you're really trying to save every gram so you can go as fast as possible, then you're going to not be as comfortable when you're sleeping. But if you're willing to add a pound or two, you know, like, I mean, and it's so funny and it's interesting because, like, for example, I could lose like 5 pounds, right? And then I could carry 2 more pounds.
Stuff, yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to do next year. Like last year I weighed like 173 when I started. This year I weighed 193 when I started. So there's like 20 pounds to work with there. That's why I earned the name Flabby McDingleberry this year. So I kind of went into this totally untrained, but I couldn't not do Rockstar because I just love it so much. So anyhow, I was just like, I'm going to do it anyhow, even though I'm not trained and I'm out of shape and I'm heavy. But so there's that, you know, like, I mean, I'm like last night I slept outside in my yard just trying to dial in the system. I'm so into this and I love it now.
So if a person wants to do the ride and they're in this situation where they're like, should I take this? Should I not take this? And they err on the like, I'm going to go light and not take it. In worst case scenario, they have a terrible night and they want to go stay the next night at a hotel or something like that. Are there options for like cabins, camping, Airbnbs, you know, like what sort of situation are they in if they need to bail and sleep in somewhere warm?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I actually took advantage of that option B on night 2 of my gravel ride. So on night 1, I was totally miserable. And I got so little sleep that during the next day, if I stopped riding and just was standing, I would fall asleep standing up. So I was like, holy cow, this is really bad. That night I reached Covington and I hadn't covered that. I could have kept going, but I was like, I'm going to call it quits here and get a hotel for the night. For $56, I stayed at the Quality Inn and I was so happy. I mean, like, I'm not really.
Shower, right?
I took a bath that night
and
then I took a shower the next morning and it was a king size bed. It was amazing. And then I ordered delivery food and beer, so from the Rail, which is a cool little restaurant right in Covington. So Covington is one of those places. It's a pretty significant town right along the route. That's just great. It has everything you could possibly want with hotels, restaurants, delivery. So there's that. And I will say, on the other side of this coin, so like I'm getting to Covington in like survival mode, right? I need a hotel. Abe Kaufman, he knew in Covington, like just along the route, there's this mountain something convenience store. He had done his homework before and he called in an order to Mountain whatever grocery or convenience store like while he was on the trail, and his breakfast was ready.
Wow.
When he arrived, and then he just ate breakfast and kept going. So like he probably spent 10 minutes in Covington. I spent like 14 hours in Covington, you know, like it's just a different approach.
Right.
But
race, not race. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different approaches and there's a lot of options like that. And so just to speak to, like, Covington is like near the middle of the route. And it's a great reprieve for anybody who's needing a break.
Yeah.
Whether it's just a couple of hours to spend eating Mexican food and drinking a margarita, or you really need an overnight place. And other places, like past Covington, there's not that much. I mean, the Pave Route goes into Eagle Rock a bit.
Yep. There's like a random gas station.
Exactly.
And stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And the gravel route, though, from currently the gravel route goes from the West Augusta store all the way to Covington with nothing in between, and then goes from Covington all the way to Catawba with nothing in between. So you got to give it some thought as to what you're going to bring and how much you need to pack.
Yeah.
But that's a really good question, and do your homework depending on the route you're gonna choose. And there are, like, at mile, like, I think it's 100 on the route, there's the Fort Lewis Lodge, which is an amazing place to stay, and they feed you and it's gorgeous and there's a hot tub. So you can kind of glamp out on this. Like, you can go 50 miles and stay at Shenandoah Mountain Touring. And that's a great camping, and I think they may even have a lodge there as well. And then you can go another 60 miles and stay at Fort Lewis Lodge, and then you can go another 50 miles and stay in Covington. So you can do this without even bringing a tent. Actually, Wilderness Adventure at Eagle Landing is not that far off the route once you get to, like, the Price Mountain area.
Yeah.
So there's a hostel right near the end of Dragon's Back too. So you could have no tent if you've got the time and you're taking it like a tour and you just want to enjoy, you could do that. And but definitely, and there's a good map that we've got, tinyurl.com/Rockstar Google Map.
Easy, yeah.
And it has all of the lodging and food options along the way laid out.
And we'll post that URL in the comments or in the description of this video too, so you can find that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's neat that you can. What I love about it is like you're not, even though you may feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, a lot of times you have access to resources if you need them. Worst case scenario, you know, a lot of places have cell coverage, not everywhere, but a lot of places do have cell coverage. Paved roads are relatively close by if anything happens. So while it is an adventure, it does have almost a safety net behind it. Worst case scenario. Yeah.
Day one for the gravel route, I had cell service pretty frequently. Day two, not so much. A neat thing about the Grand Depart is that everybody's encouraged to carry a tracking device, which adds another layer of connectivity and safety. Basically, people can see where you are at all times, and it's updated every 5 to 10 minutes, your location on this map. And then if you really get into a bad situation, you could always press the SOS button on the tracker. And then literally, search and rescue is going to come to that spot where you are and take you and save you.
Yeah, excellent. So I think, you know, that kind of touched on some of the gear and some of the other parts of the ride that you did. I think we wanted to move into sort of my experience with the Rockstar and kind of what brought me to enjoy it so much. And I know you wanted to ask me some questions as far as that goes.
Right. So I'd met you and we were all having fun and we were talking about this, like, hey, let's all get together, a group of us, like a team effort at doing Rockstar. We even all got the same socks. It was a fun thing. And then we're like, how are we gonna do the shuttle? And you were really helpful in working out. So we all get here at Downshift super early one Saturday morning, I think it was. And then we drove up at a ridiculously early time. I think, what time were we in Harrisonburg?
I think 5 o'clock or 5:30 in Harrisonburg. Like, it was before dawn.
Wow.
So,
it was.
We left at like 3 or something.
It was it was ridiculously early, which comes easier to Steve than it does to me. So you were like, I'm going to do this, of course, right? And then I thought it was really funny. Like, I don't think you had a bike necessarily for you. So you was it the night before?
It was the night before. I put together an old, it was like an old Fuji frame or something. Diamondback. It was a Diamondback. It was an old Diamondback, random road bike frame that was laying in the shop. And I was like, whatever, this will work. And so I put it together that night before. We were like 165 miles. And then we started that day to ride in a day, right? And so we left here at 3 a.m. or something, started the ride. I think it was at dawn.
Before that, when was the last time you had ridden like 100 miles or something like that?
Oh my gosh. It was probably, I for certain know it was 2004.
Holy cow!
Yeah, in California. Yeah. So my last century was before that, about 15 years or so. Before that. Yeah. So
I'd known Steve, but I'd never ridden with Steve, and so I thought, I just didn't know and I didn't know how much you're riding, but Steve's obviously an incredible athlete, cyclist, so it's super cool. So we get out riding, he's riding on his bike, he put together the last night, and we start, and you could tell a little bit of the story, so what happens?
It's great because I don't know what to expect, and all I know is there's this challenge in front of me, and can we do this, and that's what's appealing to me is the dumber and longer it is, the more I like it.
So we had 11 people in on this challenge, right?
Exactly, so, And being new to Roanoke and new to the area, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew a little bit of backstory, living in Alaska, living in Canada, I know what real sort of danger and real wilderness, and I knew it was this is safe. I've got a great group of people. It's gonna be fun. I had no worries, and so I was like, this is gonna be awesome. I'm so excited to do this, or at least try it. None of us knew if we could make it. We had no support for any mechanical stuff. We had no support for food. It was just we're gonna wing it and go. And it was just, So starting out you ride, we did the Pave if it wasn't already clear, but it starts in Harrisonburg and it starts along those rolling hills outside of town, and it's just gorgeous. Farmland, epic scenery, beautiful views, sunrise, you know, especially when you're in a group of people and you're all enjoying it, it's quiet. You have that like dawn sort of quiet to it,
Yeah.
no traffic, you know. Yeah, and then it progressed through what Rob was talking about earlier, just all these rolling hills and farmland and gravel roads and wilderness, and like you experience mountains, you know, farmland, wilderness, gravel. It's all built into one, and it's all 165 miles long, and between these two epic ride centers. And so like really, I mean, it's such an amazing ride.
So it was super cool to ride with you that day. I had so much fun getting to know you a lot that day too, and then. You know, there's so many personalities to the Pave Route as you start in Harrisonburg. Like you're in Mennonite country originally. Yep. Did we see any horse pull drawn? Because
I don't remember if we did that ride, but we definitely. I mean, you see the signs for them. Yeah, and you can see them kind of off the road too. But yeah, we didn't pass any. I don't.
It was really interesting as I rode from south to north this time on the Pave Route. There were a bunch of Mennonite youth on bicycles late at night. It was cool. Like they were all out partying secretly somewhere.
Yep.
And like it was really funny.
Yeah.
And then the next day, you know, you could see, and that's a cool like personality type thing. And you go over Mole Hill and you kind of roll toward the very edge of the mountains there where it climbs up to Reddish Knob. But then the Pave Route takes a turn down Tillman Road, which is this long dirt road that's really reasonable on a road bike.
Is that the one that goes past the dam and the lake? Yep.
And I mean, it was really fun. And for me, because I'd done it once before, to be with 10 other riders and just to see them and their expressions and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we were all like, you know, we knew each other and some of us ridden together and we're doing like these fun pace lines at times and working together. And then when other people were suffering, we would all pause together and help each other out. Like at one time, Nick was pretty dehydrated or something, like and climbing up Rich Patch.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, and it was great. And we all made it back and there was a party on the top of Downshift's roof.
It was great. It was so cool. And I think for me, like, what I really enjoyed was it was a hard day, like 165 miles. I don't know how many hours, but we got back to Roanoke, you know, and the route goes up Mill Mountain and it's like the last climb and you're already in Roanoke. So you're done. Yeah. And you're looking at your computer and you're like, God damn it, you know, I've got to go up this last mountain to finish the route, you know, and it's hard because it goes up the old road, which is steep, and you're suffering and it hurts. But when you get to the star, you have this ridiculous view of downtown Roanoke, and it's totally worth it. And it was like surreal because we had the whole group of people, and you know there were rando, you know, pedestrians up there and people visiting Roanoke. I'm like, hey, where'd you ride from? We were like Harrisonburg, and they were like, wait, what? And so just being done and finishing it and having the sense of accomplishment and looking out over the stars, just like so cool. Because then from there, it's just literally just a coast downhill and you're in downtown Roanoke and then you're at Texas Tavern for the finish.
Yep, and that is, I think I get a lot of flack for that finish because you basically come into town and you ride relatively close to the finished location and you go right by it to Mill Mountain where you got to climb this mountain and each of the three routes climbs it in a different way and the trail route climbs it in a pretty difficult way. But then nobody complains once they're at the star. I mean, because you got to go to the star. It's the Rockstar ride, you know? So then after that, it seemed like you had a vision for this or something came together in your mind. So
so I think like really for me it was, you know, I've always loved adventure. That's sort of what draws me to bike riding is like, it's always something new and it's not about, you know, for me anyway, it's not about racing. It's not about, you know, the competition aspect of it. It's about the adventure. It's about the exploration. It's about seeing new things. Yeah. And that ride showcased so much of Virginia and so much of like a challenge within myself that I was like, more people need to do this because I know that that's at the heart of a lot of people who like to ride bikes is that spirit and that feeling and that attitude. And so I was like, we have to develop this into something that can draw people to Virginia, draw people to Roanoke, draw people to Harrisonburg, and develop this route.
Yeah. It's cool too. And the difference, so we already have like a legendary route, the Blue Ridge Parkway, right? Like people can go from here to Charlottesville and it's cool. And it's super cool. It's amazing route, but it's only got that one kind of developed route. Actually, the Virginia Endurance Series has developed 2 more routes that parallel the Parkway to Charlottesville. And I can talk a little bit about that later on. But anyhow, there's, so on that side of 81, it's like this really established thing, but it's the Parkway, and there's and I'll tell you, like, there's so much less traffic on that Pave route than on the Parkway.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's no less stunning visually.
Yep.
Yes.
And that was part of the decision too, is it was like amazing how you know, a lot of people are sort of afraid to road bike because they don't want to get hit, you know, and they're afraid of traffic. And like, I mean, I don't know how many cars we passed, but it was not a high traffic route. And the fact that a lot of it's Forest Service roads and backcountry asphalt paved roads, you know, you don't have the traffic like you do in city centers and in major thoroughfares, or the Parkway for even that matter, because it's not a tourist route.
Yeah, and just to say about the Pave route, if you have a bike with like 23 or 25C super thin tires for racing, like you want to swap those out for something like at least that has durable tread and sidewalls, because the route doesn't, it features some gravel portions. And they're not super rugged. I love reaching them. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, this is even more beautiful. And the reason roads are not paved is because they're not used enough to warrant being paved, which means that this is going to be a really great experience. Like when you see gravel up ahead, smile should get even bigger, and it normally does. But if you got 23C super thin tires, you're going to be worried when you get to that section. So just a word of advice: if you're doing the Pave route, you can totally do it on a road bike. Like last time I did it on my road bike, or before this, I did it on my road bike with 28C slicks, but the slicks were Pan Racer Gravel King slicks.
That's what I did it on too. It was the same tire, 28C Gravel Kings, that file tread. You know, not the knobbies.
Yeah, and that's more than enough tire. I have 26C Gravel Kings, and I would do it on those as well. Just because there's only like 20% of it is maybe gravel. But those gravel sections are a really fun highlight of the route. And they put you into areas where you may have been in Clifton Forge like 100 times in your life, but you've never seen Clifton Forge quite like that. Like that New York train thing that we all took pictures in front of. So so then, so what happened from there for you? I mean,
so I think like with kind of developing this, you know, we wanted to take it to market, for lack of a better term, and kind of introduce other people to the ride. And you know, especially with like Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge kind of showcasing the region as a ride center, and like being designated as an IMBA level, silver level ride center, and having a designation as the East Coast mountain bike capital. It was like, well, this just goes hand in hand with this route, because not only can we get people to Roanoke, but we can get them to Harrisonburg, we can have them see everything in between the two. And so to feature this as a tourist destination and to feature this as something people can do when they get here, I was like, we have to develop this. This is such a neat idea. And so what we're going to transition to talking to now is Downshift's role for the future, and with Rob's help, and kind of how we're going to bring Rockstar to more people. And so there's 2 things that I'd like to talk about, and that's the Pave overnight, which is what we're going to book a lot of into this spring and summer, and then the stage race, which is going to hopefully happen every year from now on as well. And I'll talk about the overnight Pave portion, and then Rob will talk about the stage race and kind of how that went down. And so what Downshift is going to do is we're going to feature these trips that are going to be bookable. What you'll do is you'll come to Roanoke, you know, you'll stay either overnight or a couple days in Roanoke and do some riding here, or just hang out, grab a beer, have some food. Downshift will shuttle you up to Harrisonburg in our van. We have a 12-passenger Sprinter van with a bunch of bike racks on it, and so it's a really comfortable, fun ride. We'll start at Black Sheep Coffee in the morning. You'll ride, 80 miles to Douthit, maybe? 80 miles to Douthit. We'll have an entire camp set up for you, so your tent and stuff will be ready. We'll have hot water, we'll have food, we'll have shelter. Douthit has the most incredible hot showers at the campsite. The campsite is right on the lake, and so you get great views. You can swim if you want, you can fish, you can relax. They have a restaurant that you can eat at if you want to do that. It's just a really nice break from the ride. You know, you can relax as much as you want. You can make phone calls. They've got Wi-Fi, I think, at the campsite, or at the store anyway. Nice break from the route. And then we start the next morning, and then it's another 90 miles ballpark, 85 miles to Roanoke. And then we finish in Roanoke, we stop at Texas Tavern, we have a cheesy Western, and then either a beer at Downshift or one of the great local breweries here in downtown Roanoke. And that's gonna be booked as an overnight trip. we're hoping to do at least 2 of those a month, probably starting in April, May-ish, all the way through September, October. We've got a great long riding season here in Virginia. And then the other component is the stage race, which Rob can talk more about, and that's going to be only offered during the Grand Departs in April. So go ahead and tell about that.
Just to ask about your overnight trip.
Sure.
Do you leave early, like Saturday morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll wake up bright and early Saturday morning. Probably, I would like to be out of here by like 5 or 6 o'clock so we can get an early 7, 8 o'clock start.
Yep. And then just to talk about like the start location at Black Sheep. So Black Sheep is a fantastic coffee shop in Harrisonburg. Coffee's great. The food is fantastic breakfast food. Chance is the owner there. He's also a rider, and so he loves supporting and seeing stuff like this. So even if on those days you get there, if you let Chance know your guys are coming up, he'll make sure that his staff is ready.
Early, yeah, good.
Yeah, but they open at 7 anyhow, so which is probably works perfectly with your event. So the stage race was developed because the trails and the riding are so ridiculously good. And it's one thing to ride those trails on a completely loaded bike, like if you're bike packing, and it's another experience entirely to just have like your day gear, like your normal riding stuff, and be having a blast on the best trails in Virginia. Like, for example, you climb up to Reddish Knob on Union Springs, and you're at Reddish Knob, which is over 4,000 feet, looking into West Virginia, looking into Virginia. It's amazing. Right from the summit of Reddish Knob is a single track trail that's awesome and it's crazy technical. And like 2 years ago, one of my friends he arrived there at night, he was doing an ITT effort, and it's technical at the top, like it's rocky. So he's on this rocky section, he took a tumble on a loaded bike broke his hand or something like that. I mean, so anyhow, one of the cautions I say to everybody on the trail route, if you're coming from another area and you're not familiar with the trails, is don't be afraid to walk on some of these things. But anyhow, to get back to the stage race, it's so cool because you're unloaded. Essentially, when you get to Black Sheep on the morning of the Grand Depart, you find the Downshift van, which is very easy to find because it says huge Downshift on the side, super cool Sprinter van. And you bring your bag over and you toss it in, and that bag is going to be waiting for you at the end of the stages. So day 1, we get to Braley Pond, and there's camping there, and it's right on the route. So you just ride up, and there's Steve or whoever else from the Downshift team waiting for you, and it's great. And then day 2, every day begins at 7 a.m. So you got to get yourself up early enough so that you're ready to ride at 7. But even if you're not ready to ride at 7, you can go whenever you want. It's just the clock starts at 7 every day in the stage race. And then you're off. The next day is Douthit is where the stage ends. Douthit, like Steve described, is a fantastic center point and feature of the ride. Lots of amenities there, but it's also just great camping and a super experience right up to the moment that you arrive with your bike. Like the single track trail, basically comes right into the campground. It's fantastic. And then you camp, you ride out of there, and there's another camping spot. It's a private place that we have a friend that owns property there in the Eagle Rock area. And Steve and the team are there. And then that's the last overnight. So the rest of your stuff is going to be back here waiting for you when you finish the event in Roanoke.
Yeah, so thank you, Flavie, for your interview here today. We appreciate your time and coming by and giving us the story and the details on Rockstar. Just tell everybody where they can go for more information. Obviously, we'll have these links in the details of the video as well. But give a rundown of all the places on the web you can find out more information.
So on Facebook is really where the home for the 2021 Grand Depart is. And if you just Google right now, Rockstar Challenge 2021, you'll see it. It's got a pink border with the Rockstar logo. So just to tell you, the Grand Depart is a free event, but we do ask that you do trail work. So everybody who participates, regardless of the division, trail, gravel, or pave, trail, gravel, or pave, we ask that you do 10 hours of trail work on the route as sort of your entry fee, because that's part of the thing of the whole event is that we want to give back. We want to support these amazing trails. If you live somewhere and that's totally impossible, you can donate to the Virginia Endurance Series or one of the regional trail advocacy groups like Brock or Shenandoah Valley Bicycle Coalition. So that is, wait, what was I talking about?
Where to go for more information.
Yeah, so go to Facebook primarily. Yep. There is a website, VirginiaEnduranceSeries.com, and we haven't been keeping that updated, but we've got a team of folks that are going to try to do a little bit better job of keeping that updated as we move forward. So Facebook is primary. We also have an Instagram account for Virginia Endurance Series. And we're doing a bunch of interviews and different things there. So if you're interested in trying this and you tune into the VES Instagram page, there's a lot of interviews with riders that have previously done it, so you can get a lot of great information there. Also, just looking at like the 2020 page or the 2019 page and looking at the discussion from those events, a load of information is there. Just if you're interested in sussing things out and trying to figure out your stuff. Like Abe Kaufman, who won this year, he said, I solidly spent 2 weeks just
doing research.
Researching the route and figuring it out, like when I'm going to try to get to each destination too.
Yeah, cool. Is there a date set for 2021 right now?
Yep, April 17th, 2021.
So April 17th, 7 a.m. Black Sheep Coffee is when everybody's taking off.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one last thing about the 2021 Grand Depart, all the Grand Departs, they all have a registration that's set up on trackleaders.com as well. So if you go to trackleaders.com and search for Rockstar, registration doesn't open until about a month before the Grand Depart. And then you register there, and that's just so you're going to have a dot on the trackleaders.com page. Like Trans Am does this, Tour Divide does it, lots of events like this. Trans North Georgia used trackleaders.com so you could follow the progress of the riders. So it's really fun because if you're a fan or just somebody following the event, like we had thousands of people tuning in and watching dots progress as this year's Grand Depart unfolded.
Very cool.
So that's where the only registration happens, and on there you register. It's like $15 just if you own your own tracker, and I think it's $60 or $65 if you need to rent a tracking device from them. That also adds, so in addition to adding like camaraderie and fun with people following you and being able to comment and give you encouragement, it adds a level of safety too, because it does have a SOS button on those tracking devices. So that's next year. It's easy to find, and you could always message the Virginia Endurance Series if you have any questions about it. And then it's again, the ideal is the trail work part too. So we want this event to support this entire trail corridor. And every year Mike Scales uses this event as a fundraiser too for his his Allegheny County Trail Coalition.
Yep.
So there's that.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rob, for your time today. And stay tuned for more. You can always go to downshiftbikes.com and look at our events tab and see our future events that we're going to be doing to support the Rockstar Grand Depart, as well as our own private bookings of the Rockstar Pave. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your time today. Any final comments before we sign off?
I just want to say one other thing, that what Steve has done and Downshift has done, I think, is really fantastic. And it was part of the dream too, so this corridor, it wouldn't just be something for the riders, but it would support, like, meaningfully every organization, every business that's along the route. Like, and Fort Lewis Lodge kind of has tuned into that. Like, they know, hey, riders are going to come by. They welcome the riders to come in. We've had riders stay there in the past. All of these stores have like a ton of increased business. Like Abe said, when he was in Covington, they knew about the race at this country store. Cool. And he was the first person through. So I have an idea, like next year, to have these little stickers I'm going to give to all the riders, like, you've been rockstarred. And every time they go into a business and support it, they just put it somewhere in there, just to show that this event is supporting all of these places along the way and all these organizations. Like, I personally thought I had all of my gear together. I think I probably spent over $100 at Shenandoah Valley Bicycle. I mean, at Shenandoah Bicycle shop, right in downtown, which is right by. Like, I bought a pair of gloves and I bought other snacks and foods. So it's great. And so the idea too is to economically and support all of these businesses as well as the trails.
Trail maintenance, which is fantastic. Yeah, and again, it's all nonprofit. Like VES is a nonprofit thing. You know, this isn't a huge race organization that's putting this stuff on. This is, people that love the region and love the trails and love getting people into riding. So
thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
this has been awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for your time. See you guys next week. Thanks again, and cheers.
Cheers.